Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Adebola Adedwa. The top stories at this hour. More troops will be deployed to uproot new terror sects, Lakurawa in affected states in Nigeria's north. Nigeria receives potential fuel supply boost as Port Harcourt refinery begins production. Armed masked men disrupt anti-government protest in Malawi. Details shortly. Let's begin by telling you that the federal government has announced plans to deploy additional military personnel and formations to states affected by the activities of the Lakurawa sect as part of intensified efforts to combat the terrorist group. And this was disclosed by Colonel Ahmed Usman, Special Advisor on Security Matters to Sokoto State Governor Ahmed Aliyu. Usman revealed that the government's decision followed the November 8 attack on Mera village in Kebbi State, where 17 residents were killed. The sect, known for its operations in Sokoto and Kebbi states in the northwest, is reported to have expanded its activities into Niger and Kaduna States in north-central Nigeria. The Sokoto state government reiterated its commitment to protecting lives and property, emphasizing that security remains a top priority on its 9-point agenda. And to talk about this, we're joined by a security expert, and that's Augustine Ega. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me on the news.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure joining.
Now, this terror group known as Lakurawa, what could be the implication of them expanding into Niger as well as Kaduna States?
I think the government should be more proactive, knowing where Nigeria is coming from with the insecurity situations, especially in Borno. I didn't expect them to grow in capacity to what we have today. If the intelligence was actionable and they did something about it, they should have contained them in Sokoto long ago before now. But now that it has gone beyond Sokoto, I think it's now almost like the Boko Haram thing that we had in the past. It is in place. It's a good thing that they have deployed military personnel to do their job. But I think it would have been fine for us to be more proactive, taking out these elements at a very initial stage so that they don't grow in capacity and capabilities. So that is always the issue we have in our country.
Now, talking about additional troops being deployed to try to curb these terror group, what else can the government do to help tackle this challenge with this terror group called the Lakurawa?
Instead of waiting for opportunity where they have to deploy government forces and spend more money, I think they should work more on the intelligence. Whatever intelligence that they have on these illegal gatherings, illegal they're built up, they should always have knowledge of this and then do something very early before it gets to this point where you have to withdraw a lot of military men, spend a lot of budget, and of course even risk the life of our military personnel. I think that they should always work on their intelligence. Intelligence is the most strategic thing in this place to deal with this terror attack.
Let's look at government's efforts so far when it comes to curbing insecurity and also activities of government such as counter-terrorism strategies. You've talked about the need for intelligence gathering, and do you think also it's a function or question of needing more personnel in terms of the police or security architecture in Nigeria?
We cannot totally fault the security architecture of Nigeria, but yes, to some point, we have been clamoring for state policing, and the federal government is carrying too much in its hand, too much weight. And these also get them distracted, and they don't take actions or take decisions when it should that affect the public. If we are truly practicing federalism, like what we copied from the Western world, I think that policing is left for the state. And it's not only the military. At the last point, we have to begin to bring in military to fight for us. If they really, really go into state policing, it will help them to handle these kind of organizations that spring up so early. Not until you get to a level where the federal government will start doing something. So state policing is something that we cannot avoid. We should start thinking about it as early as we can.
Okay, talking about state policing now in Nigeria, we have received or seen concerns or reports about funding and not being inadequate. Should we commence state policing? What are your thoughts about this, and how can we, address such fears going forward?
Believe me, we are more than mature to begin this state policing because considering the
Mr. Ega seems we lost connection with our guest there, Augustine Ega, security expert. We thank him all the same for his time on the news. In the meantime, operatives of the Nigerian Police Force, Delta State Command, have arrested dozens of criminal suspects across the Ughelli, Warri, and Sapele areas in recent weeks. And this was made known by the Delta State Police Public Relations Officer, Bright Edafe, during a parade of the suspects in Ughelli on Monday. The arrested individuals include a 22-year-old suspect who disguises as a transporter, a syndicate that specializes in kidnapping, armed robbery, car snatching, and defrauding of unsuspecting victims' bank accounts via SMS, SIM swap around Ughelli, Warri, Sapele, Ogara, Abraka, and environs. The police PRO said as residents of the state are approaching the Yuletide season, the Commissioner of Police has directed the Deputy Commissioner of Police Operation and constantly monitors and supervises officers and men of the command to ensure that the operation order for Ember Month is duly complied with.
Suspects arrested with large quantity of drugs, which includes codeine, tramadol, and some weed suspected to be Indian hemp. This is fabricated Beretta pistol. We have 1, 2, 3. We have 8 magazines on display here. We have 101 live ammunitions of K2 rifle. This is a locally fabricated cut-to-size gun. 3 pop action guns. These are drugs that we are talking about. I wonder what they are doing with this. These are codeine, completely banned. And this is what some of our youth feast on. It's terrible, and I hope that God comes to our rescue because it is a very big deal. These are weeds suspected to be Indian hemp, and this is how it's usually packed for sale. We have about 70 rounds of free rifle. This is...
Away from that, Edo State Governor, Senator Monday Okpewolu, has ordered the immediate dissolution of the Local Government Service Commission, and the announcement was made on Monday in a statement by the governor's chief press secretary, Fred Itwa, who explained that the move aligns with the government's broader efforts to streamline operations and enhance the performance of public sector institutions. Governor Okpewolu reassured the public that the solution would not disrupt any ongoing official activities and pledged to work closely with stakeholders to restructure the commission for improved effectiveness. He reiterated his administration's commitment to transparent governance, emphasizing that these reforms aim to deliver better services and dividends of democracy to the people of Edo State. In the meantime, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has placed former Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki on its watch list as it investigates transactions including contracts awarded during his 8-year tenure. Obaseki, who left office in November 12, had previously claimed that the EFCC intended to arrest him after his tenure. Now, this development follows the establishment of a 14-member state asset verification committee by his successor, Governor Monday Okpewolu, to scrutinize his government. Earlier, on November 2nd, the EFCC arrested 5 officials from Obaseki's government, including the Accountant General, Julius Anelu, over alleged massive withdrawals from the state treasury within a short time frame. Despite these developments, Obaseki has maintained his willingness to cooperate with the EFCC, saying he's not afraid of a probe and was ready to account for his stewardship. And to talk about this, we're joined by the former Commissioner for Digital Economy, Science and Technology in Edo State, and that's Ogbeide Ifaluyi Isibo. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me on the news.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Let me kick off by asking what your thoughts are on the EFCC decision to place former governor, of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, on watch list.
Well, it's a developing story, and we haven't heard officially from the spokesman to the governor. But this is not something that is uncommon with the political terrain that we find ourselves, where the EFCC, quote unquote, seems to become a tool. But however, Governor Godwin Obaseki has always maintained that he ran a very transparent government, and he's open to any form of interrogation or probe by the new administration or by the EFCC. He is not in hiding. He is available for questioning. And so if the EFCC is placing him on a watch list, to me, that is more of the political language and actually wanting to find out or more about his accountability or transparency while in office. We ran a very accountable and transparent government. We were acknowledged, by various stakeholders as one of the most transparent governments in the history of our country. And all our books are open for public scrutiny. We became completely digital. We became a paperless government. That means all procurement processes for all contracts, all approvals that are given, are all done on digital platforms, and they exist. So there's nothing that is being hidden from anybody, even from the public. So today, even if you want to see all memos, that Governor Obaseki signed while he was in government, they're all available on our ARP platform. That's the purpose of going digital. It makes your government transparent, it makes it accountable, makes it efficient, and makes it effective. We were able to archive over 70 million records, in governments. That's from 1999 until date. And so all the information available for a probe or for investigation are available for the people to see. So I don't think former Governor Obaseki is bothered about the information about being on the watch list. He's said it time and time again that he's open to public scrutiny, and that is what it should be.
Now, as a former commissioner yourself, how do you see what do you make of this in terms of EFCC's investigation into contracts and of course awards, during Obaseki's administration? What does it really mean for you being a former commissioner?
I honestly think that when we serve public office, we serve with the notion that the public is interested in what we do. We serve with the thought that after we finish our service, our records or our dealings are exposed to public scrutiny. I have no trouble with that at all. I think that is what should be after anybody leaves office. It helps accountability, it helps transparency. So as one who served in the last administration, I think it's not what anybody should worry about, especially when you know that your hands are clean, when you know that you led a very transparent and accountable government, when you know that even public opinion suggests that the Godwin Obaseki government was a very prudent one, was one that abhorred waste, and we saw it in every facet of government. This was the first and only government in the history of Nigeria where members of the state ESCO did not have official cars. Most of my colleagues in other states had convoys while they were moving around, but in Edo, no commissioner serving under Godwin Obaseki had an official car. Instead, we had a fleet management agency such that whenever we had official assignments alone, we had vehicles allocated for that assignment. And when it is done, the car goes back to the pool. So this was done to reduce government waste. And instead of spending scarce resources, servicing a few political office holders, we're deploying this money for the service of the people to provide public utility. And that's what our government was known for. So it is not a problem to me or to anyone that served in Godwin's government if the EFCC or the present government is trying to find out what you did. The books are open. We had an asset management register that housed all the assets the Edo States had at the time we served. All the contracts that were awarded, the procurement process was all electronic. It is all on digital platforms, so it's visible or accessible to anybody not just the EFCC or the present government. Anybody who wants to find out what happened under Governor Obaseki's government can easily have access to those documents on the internet.
Now, there are concerns that this probe by the EFCC could be stemming from personal vendetta, or do you think it's justifiable looking at these coming from Monday Okpewolo, who is now the governor of the state? What do you make of those concerns?
Well, every concern stems from an assumption or some facts. And I wouldn't want to, put aside how anybody feels about it. But be that as it may, it is obvious today that the EFCC's start to say has become like a political tool. I remember in 2016, when Governor Adams Oshiomhole left office, there were several papers that were written, several queries, several letters to the EFCC, publishing documents, publishing information on financial misappropriation as perpetrated by that government. But because he appeared to be serving or to have served, a party that was at the center, nothing was done. We reached out to the EFCC on several occasions to come and investigate Adams Oshiomhole, but nothing ever happened. And if you check it too, most of the governors who get to be troubled with the EFCC are governors who don't belong to the same political party or have an axe to grind with those in government. So it doesn't appear to be a very fair, commission that really wants to check financial misappropriation. But that is not the meat of this argument. For me, I think that the Obaseki administration is open for criticism or open to investigation by the EFCC or the IPC or any other agency that wants to come check our books, because we are very sure and we're matter of fact that we ran a very transparent government.
All right, thank you so much for your perspective on the news. Ogbeide Ifaloye Isibo, who is the former commissioner for digital economy, science and technology in Edo State. Many thanks indeed.
Thank you for having me.
Governor Caleb Mofung has presented the Plateau State Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy Paper for 2025 to 2027, along with 2025 Appropriation Bill to the State House of Assembly. Approximately 471.1 billion naira is the total budget size, which the governor said will give priority to security, agriculture, education, health, and other sectors that will further improve livelihood in the state. Our correspondent, Chizoba Anyonwe, tells us more.
Caleb Mofung is among the first 10 governors in Nigeria to present their 2025 appropriation bill. The recurrent expenditure for the fiscal year is 201.5 billion naira, representing 45.46% of the total budget, while the capital expenditure stands at 258.8 billion naira, representing 56.54% of the budget size. With 156.2 billion naira higher than the 2024 budget, the governor said the bill, titled Budget of Consolidation and Sustainability, is a show of his commitment for further development in the state.
I assure you that we remain committed to serving you faithfully. I will not be distracted by any threats to our democratic ideals. I wish to inform this honorable House that the implementation of the budget will still be anchored on the present Plateau State Strategic Development Framework of 2023 to 2027, which is encapsulated in 3 pillar policies. 1, peace, security, and good governance. 2, sustainable economic revival. And 3, physical infrastructure development.
He is hopeful the Assembly members will ensure the budget receives swift attention, scrutiny, and speedy passage.
I sincerely trust that this budget will receive the attention and scrutiny it rightly deserves. As you carefully examine the budget, Mr. Speaker, I humbly request your cooperation and understanding in ensuring its prompt passage. A swift approval will enable us to initiate the implementation of these vital projects without delay.
Speaker of the Assembly assured the commitment of the legislators in contributing to the growth of Plateau State.
Today, we want to assure His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Plateau State, that this Honorable House will look at the budget and do the necessary scrutiny as usual. But it should be noted that this institution remains resolute. We will never be disgraced, abused, or ridiculed in the name of creating seamless working relationship.
The people of Plateau State, as well as the governor, are now waiting on these legislators' swift approval and passage of the 2025 budget. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyui.
After the break, Port Harcourt refinery begins production. Join us again. Thank you for staying with us. Let's also tell you that after several postponements, the Port Harcourt refinery has commenced fuel production. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited confirmed this to newsmen on Tuesday. According to the Chief Corporate Communication Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, in person of Femi Shoneye, he said the loading of trucks would start off today, Tuesday. He said that this is a historic achievement, marks the beginning of a new era of our country's economic development and energy independence. Some energy experts in Nigeria have called on the public to disregard rumors describing the use of compressed natural gas as unsafe and unfit for use in the transportation sector. Some of them spoke to newsmen in Abuja, the nation's capital, ahead of the upcoming conference on CNG, saying a focused transition to CNG will help grow the nation's economy, provide a cleaner and more sustainable energy solution for the public.
The CNG revolution in Nigeria, I think, is a huge tidal wave that I think everybody should key into to not only grow the economy of the country, to ensure that we have a cleaner and a more sustainable energy solution to drive our businesses and our economies. The gains are numerous. Using gas as a source, as a fuel of national designation, does not expose us to unnecessary risk in terms of the volatility of prices, of fluctuations of the product in the market due to foreign exchange and so on and so forth.
CNG has been adjudged to be one of the safest for automobile use. We have millions and millions of vehicles being powered by this gas all around the world, and the lowest incidence of use is from CNG-enabled vehicles. So it is not a Nigeria concept. It is a globally, fact. It's a globally acceptable fact that the gas is safe.
The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime has expressed worry over the increasing rate of violence against women and girls, with over 1 million recorded cases between 2022 and 2023. The UNODC country representative for Nigeria says that 1 in 12 women experiences femicide annually, with the actual figures likely being much higher. Our correspondent Joshua Imarai has details.
The Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Citizens and Leadership, in collaboration with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, launching the commencement of the 16 Days of Activism campaign in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. The event brought together members from the diplomatic corps, government officials and gender rights advocates under one roof. In his address, the UNODC representative in Nigeria expressed the need for African countries to enhance data collection on gender-based violence against women.
89,000 women, girls intentionally killed in 2022, the highest in 2 decades. Over 1 million crimes related to violence against women and girls were recorded in 2022-2023, accounting to 20% of all police recorded crime. At least 1 in 12 women become victims each year. Unfortunately, most African countries lack data on femicide.
The senior special assistant to the president also called for increased participation from both the government and citizens in the fight against gender-based violence.
Some of the ways in which citizens can join the fight against gender-based violence include enlightening and educating others, supporting survivors, seeking policies which better address the scourge of gender-based violence, and taking action to seek the intervention of law enforcement in such cases when witnessed. I would thus like to urge other leaders similarly empowered and at different levels of the political structure within government and the political party system to prioritize women's participation and qualitative representation in power and decision-making, both through the ballot and via appointive positions.
Beyond the 16-day period of activism against gender-based violence, other stakeholders emphasize the need for continuous effort to combat the menace.
We shouldn't just end it at the point of talking, but after today, after the 16 days action, then we must also show it through our action wherever we find ourselves so that we can end this menace.
Stakeholders at the gathering reviewed that tackling the menace of sexual and gender-based violence requires a shift in both policies and societal norms. They say that ensuring that women have access to public institutions is crucial to addressing inequality and empowering them to combat these challenges. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
And now let's switch gears to education matters, where the federal government has erected tertiary institutions across Nigeria to set up sexual assault referral centers to tackle cases of harassment, gender-based violence, and students offering lecturers sexual favors in exchange for grades. The Minister of Women Affairs, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, made this announcement during a national summit in Abuja organized by Alliances for Africa and the Committee on Gender Directors to launch the 16 Days of Activism campaign against gender-based violence. The directive follows a recent case involving a female student, Ramota Olahonloye, from the Federal University of Ekiti, who alleged that a lecturer, Dr. Anthony Agbegbedia, failed her in 2 courses after she rejected his sexual advances. Suleiman Ibrahim emphasized the importance of timely interventions and survivor support through the proposed centers which aim to create safer learning environments. She reaffirmed the government's commitment under President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda to champion gender equality, combat gender-based violence, and ensure secure campuses nationwide. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Education has announced that any student found guilty of physical assault resulting in bodily harm will face indefinite suspension from Unity colleges nationwide. In a memo signed by the Permanent Secretary, Nasiru Gwoza, the ministry stated that the decision was part of efforts to address the increasing cases of student-on-student violence. The statement emphasized the need for stricter penalty to curb the growing menace. This follows a recent directive by the federal government suspending 13 students of the Federal Government College, Enugu, for 6 weeks. The students were allegedly involved in bullying a senior secondary school student, an incident that gained public attention after a disturbing video of the assault went viral on social media. The ministry's action comes amid rising reports of bullying in both private and public schools across the country. Coming up, masked men disrupt anti-government protests in Malawi. We have details shortly. Join us again. Rescue operations are set to begin in Stilfontein at an abandoned mine where hundreds of illegal miners are still trapped underground. Over the past several weeks, the miners have been locked in a standoff with police, who surrounded the entrance of the mine shaft and blocked off their food supplies in an attempt to force them out. According to the Northwest Community Safety and Transport Management, MEC, Wessus Mogweng, the trapped miners sent another letter saying they are starving. On Monday, the Pretoria High Court dismissed application by the Society for Protection of Our Constitution, which sought to compel the government to provide emergency disaster relief to the miners. And for context, we're joined by our correspondent, Bongani Sisiba, who is on ground to give us details. And Bongani, just bring us up to speed. What's happening there regarding trapped miners there in Steelfontein?
Good afternoon, Adebola, and also a very good afternoon to our viewers. It's still a cat and mouse game down the mine where police are running around from one exit to another. When they hear sound, they go this side. Help hasn't come in. We expected that they were going to start helping these miners that are underground yesterday, but still it's just police, the visibility of police that we are seeing. We haven't seen anything that is happening to try and help those miners that are still trapped underground for several weeks now. And we, like you have rightfully said, that the High Court also yesterday dismissed an application to send food and help down there. But we have taken it to the communities just to understand those who have lived and who have relatives who are underground, just to hear how they are feeling about what is happening down there. So we are in Kuma location just to speak to some of the community members. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here at News Central. You are one of the volunteers who have gone out there to try and help, but the police chased you. How are you feeling as the community?
No, thank you very much, Boga. Let me take this time and greet the viewers at home. No, we are very devastated. We are in pain as a community, because whatever we've tried to do to assist the people, but up to so far, after our operation was stopped by the police, where they said that the one that we're using it was very dangerous and risky. But now we are just amazed. Up to so far, none of the people they've resurfaced or they've assisted up to so far. But whatever we're doing, as risky, as dangerous as it was, but we managed to resurface people, we managed to save lives as the concerned community members with the volunteers from the community. But now we are just disappointed because we are just sitting here, just watching. We want to see what's going to happen as time goes by, because every minute that pass by, someone is sick underground, someone is dying underground. And the painful part of it, they are told by those people who resurfaced from Anarasha that the situation is very dire underground there. So we just wait and see what's going to happen.
Has there been any communication with those that are underground? And in this community, what makes young men to go underground, a place that is not safe? What is it that forced the young men to go down there?
For now, there's not been any communication, because you must understand, people, they communicate the way they know. But now, one thing I can tell you, what forces these people to go there is poverty. If you can choke and go around Kuma, you can see Steelfontein. You must remember Kuma it was once a mining town, but now it has turned to ghost town. People are unemployed. There's a high rate of unemployment, poverty. You can even smell now. You smell the poverty. So that's why they are taking all those risks to go in that risky situation, to go and try to make a living out of for their families.
Thank you. Let me just bring in someone who has a brother who is down there. My sister, how are you, and how are you feeling every minute knowing that your brother is down there and there's no help that is going down there to help him?
I'm not well. I don't want even to lie. You know, when it started, I want, as a community, standing up, volunteering ourselves, saying that we're going to help our brothers. I got involved because I wanted my brother back. And in that moment, I had hope. Now I'm getting to lose a hope again, because they said that the system that we're using is very slow and very dangerous. But there's the safe one. And the fastest one, it seems like it has not started. We are going to a second week now. They haven't saved anyone. And now they are taking a credit to people that came out in Shaft 10. Those people, they came out on their own. They did nothing. Whatever the operation that they've started, it has not done anything. And they are refusing to give people food. They are refusing to give people medication and water. So I'm wondering, is my brother still alive?
Adebola, a plea from the community there just for their relatives who are down the shaft just to be saved. And they are pleading with the government that at least they should at least send them food or help down there so that at least they can save them. Some community members who have volunteered before that they have been rescuing other people down from the mine, but nothing is happening now, and this community is pleading with the government just to do something because every minute counts for someone's life. It's back to you in the studio now.
Well, thank you so much for bringing context to that story regarding trapped miners in Steel Fountain, Bongani Ziba. Many thanks indeed. Dozens of masked men armed with machetes and clubs clashed with protesters in Malawi's capital Lilongwe on Monday, preventing a planned anti-government demonstration. The protest, organized by a civil society group, aimed to demand the resignation of the energy minister over ongoing fuel shortages to voice opposition to plans for electronic voting in next year's general election. Witnesses say the protesters, who had gathered at a sports field in the city center, were charged by the masked men as they prepared to assemble. Fleeing from the attack, the protesters were unable to regroup while the group of armed men set up camp on the field to prevent any further demonstration. The identity of the attackers remain unknown. The protest comes amid growing frustration about the country's fuel crisis and escalating food prices, which have fueled discontent across Malawi.
Took this direction. You see, for the past 5 years, we have been experiencing these demonstrations, but as you have seen today, people have been chased with pangas, panga knives, have been chased with axes, to chase their fellow Malawians who want to demonstrate their rights. It's very unfortunate that the police choose not to protect people, but
yakabazanga ndikwaneyo ndiye ndikhuza kwambiri foti timadalira mafuta omwewa ngati petroleti amene atifutawo ndingala papa zoti ndabwera mamawa ndathawirako ndapita ku 25 timatipa gamu mafuta sinapezi ndabweranso bomba lupeza kuti pane pali chiyembekezo kuti mafuta tani afika ndapanso palibenso kusunga aneseni ngati pali kusintha kwina kuti mafuta abwera kulisa abwera mene ndimkulo tani kupapita kumapapa.
Still ahead, Donald Trump vows to hit Mexico, Canada, and China with new tariffs. We have details shortly. Join us again. For staying with us. U.S. Donald Trump says he will hit China, Mexico, and Canada with new tariffs on day one of his presidency in an effort to force them to crack down on illegal immigration and drug smuggling into the U.S. The president-elect said that immediately after his inauguration on 20th January, he will sign an executive order imposing a 25% tariff on all goods coming from Mexico and Canada. He also said additional 10% tariff will be levied on China until the government there blocks smuggling of synthetic opioid fentanyl from the country. If Trump follows through with the threats, it will mark a major escalation in tensions with America's three biggest trading partners. Hundreds of Mexicans have taken to the streets of Mexico City to demand an end to violence against women in the country with a long history of macho culture. The United Nations estimates that about 10 women were killed are killed every day in Mexico, which is led by its first female president, Claudia Sheinbaum. According to UN figures released on Monday, at least 85,000 adults and young women will be intentionally killed worldwide in 2023, an alarming level of deaths that could have been avoided.
El 25 de noviembre es una fecha muy importante para nosotras, para seguir hablando, sensibilizando sobre la importancia de erradicar la violencia de género, incluyendo las maternidades forzadas. Cuando el aborto está criminalizado, las mujeres están obligadas a asumir maternidades no planeadas, no deseadas, pero también a poner en riesgo nuestra salud y nuestras vidas.
El día de hoy, 25 de noviembre, traigo una manta con el rostro de mi madre, quien, como menciono, fue víctima de feminicidio en Ixtapaluca por quien en ese momento era mi pareja sentimental. Seguimos haciendo un llamado a las autoridades, a la gobernadora Delfina, a la presidenta Sheinbaum y al gobierno de Ixtapaluca, que no se permitan influencias políticas ni intereses económicos en un caso como este de feminicidio, al igual que en el de mis otras compañeras que hoy me acompañan.
The state has appealed for restraint from Pakistani authorities and thousands of protesters marching on the capital, Islamabad, to call for release of jailed ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan. Matthew Miller, the spokesperson for U.S. State Department, urged demonstrators to maintain peace and abstain from violence, while also urging Pakistani authorities to uphold fundamental freedoms and human rights as well as Pakistan's law and constitution while enforcing law and order.
Assembly and fully and refrain from violence, and at the same time we call on Pakistani authorities to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms and to ensure respect for Pakistan's laws and constitution as they work to
The Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alaki, has given the Mineral Resources and Environmental Management Committee, MEREMCO, a 90-day ultimatum to improve its performance or face severe sanctions from the federal government. And speaking at the 2024 Annual General Meeting, AGM, of MEREMCO Chairman, Dr. Alaki expressed his satisfaction with the agency's current performance, emphasizing that it is MEREMCO's core responsibility to interface between sub-nationals, local communities, operators, and the federal government to minimize cases of conflict. The National Institute of Sport Hall at the National Stadium and Railway Park in Yaba, Lagos are all dressed up in readiness for the second phase of the Handball Premier League, which begins on Wednesday at the two venues. According to the Handball Federation of Nigeria, the 22 teams participating in the league are expected to arrive in Lagos today for the second phase, which will end on December 8th. The first phase of the league was held in Benin, Edo State. In the men's category, Toji Marine Academy hope to continue their lead in the second phase against 7th place Correction Boys. Meanwhile, in the women's category, defending champion Safety Babes, who are unbeaten in over 2 years and lead with 27 points, will begin their second phase campaign against 6th place rivals Queens. Bayern Munich striker Harry Kane believes his team needs to win all 4 of their remaining Champions League games to go through, starting with Paris Saint-Germain at home on Tuesday. Bayern have lost 2 of their 4 matches so far in the new league phase and sit 17th in the standings, with only the top 8 qualifying automatically for the last 16. Kane on Friday scored his 7th hat-trick since arriving at Bayern ahead of last season in a win over Augsburg. He netted his 50th Bundesliga goal in 43 matches, becoming the fastest to reach a half-century in the division's history, beating Erling Haaland's record by 6 games.
We're not used to obviously being that far down in a table, but obviously the new format, no one really kind of knows what to expect. The situation we're in now, we know we're going to have to win pretty much all our games if we want to get into the top 8 and probably the same for Paris as well. So tomorrow night's a big night. I think being at home, we have a slight advantage, but of course, it's going to be a difficult game. So a lot to play for, we know that. It's the start of a busy period up until the winter break. And we obviously want to start with a good victory at home in front of our fans. Paris tomorrow will be a tough game for sure. I think they have a really good team.
15 times major winner, Tiger Woods will not compete in the December 5th to 8th Hero World Challenge in Albany, Bahamas, extending his long absence from the competition. The tournament's host says Woods was not listed on the initial player field last month, but had been widely expected to take one of the 3 exemption spots for the competition, an unofficial event that features 20 of the world's top players. The American has not competed since he missed the British Open cut in July and subsequently underwent micro compression surgery for nerve impingement on his lower back in September. And that's all on the news. Let's take a look again at some of the major stories. More troops be deployed to uproot new terror sect Lakurawa in affected states in Nigeria's north. Nigeria receives potential fuel supply boost as Port Harcourt refinery begins production. Armed marksmen disrupt anti-government protest in Malawi. You can watch News Central live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adediwa.